So I see some of you have some issues or have had some issues logging in with Steam. He did that to me as well earlier. I don't know why. I could not post the link to the meeting because it was not letting me even having a meeting with you all. So I don't know what that is about. So, does anyone of you, first of all, have any kind of questions about the things we discussed the last time and the things we have done and all that? I don't have any questions either. So, we started to touch quickly to the topic of values. And I would like to talk about that actually a lot more. That should be an ongoing conversation during the semester between us. But before we start that, I would like to, really establish some basics with all of you. We established that values are system of light and shadows, light and dark, bright and dark, and that's connected to the idea of where the source of light is and all this kind of stuff. And we'll talk specifically about sources of light later this semester. But right now I really recommend, whatever you are working on, I recommend that you address it with a simple light system. Most of the time the light system is set up, if you are into a natural environment, the light used to come from the top, like the sun, for example. And that gives you some basic ideas of how light and shadows are being displayed on your subject and on what you draw, what you paint. For example, little shadow under the nose, little shadow under the chin, going down on the neck. This is typical of light coming from above. That works if you are in a normal room with ceiling lights. That works if you are outside playing in the field under the sun. But anyway, the idea of light and shadows being what sculpts or 3D perception of the reality is something that you must understand if you are planning to paint and draw things with some kind of realism. And I'm not saying that your style has to be realistic, but I'm saying no matter what you do, if you want to make us believe that what you are doing has some kind of accuracy, you need to have an understanding of values. There are so many ways to work with values. If you were in live drawing, for example, like when I teach figure drawing, I will explain to you that you can smudge. You can put some charcoal everywhere and smudge it and get some different shades of gray this way. You can cross hatch, you can fill stuff up with pencils, and no matter how you deal with your shadows, you have a lot of different techniques. But we are in a digital painting class, and so we are going to talk about that. We are going to look at the work of some different artists. I don't know if we'll do that today, but so I'm going to start sharing my screen a bit. All right, so you should see my screen right now, right? Okay. So, I mentioned this, by the way, if you go on Discord, in the digital painting channel, you should have one that is called brushes, and you should find 5 brushes that you can download. You can use those. I think they're also in the resources. There is also like some specific brush that you can find in the resources channel. But those 5 brushes that I have on that are really good to start working with anyway. So as you noticed, I'm starting, whatever I do it on a gray background. This way I can go darker or I can go lighter. All right, we talked about that. We are not going to get back to that again. But that gives us, all this range of action right there. And so, to get deep and straight into the topic, I'm going to show you one thing that explains values really quick, as it does also explain like some kind of attitude, or it opens you to some kind of attitude that I would like you to have when you work with Photoshop. And so here on the separated layer, I'm going to just create a disk, a circle. A disk, really. And you see, it did not take me really long to do this. And I know that some of you, if you are starting with digital painting for the first time, and if I tell you, can you please paint a black disk? I know some of you will start like that. Just trying to get it right. And then you end up with like some kind of potato. And then you will be doing exactly, you will be behaving with it the way you behave with a pencil. And you will forget that, well, it's digital painting, so you can just select a round brush and click. So there is something to talk about in this, something very important, I guess. You don't want to become a machine. You don't want to become someone who is making everything automatic. Because if you just click and do that black circle, that black disk, the way I did it, it's very different than if you do something like this. See, this one has mistakes, right? This one is not as clean, it's not perfect as the other one, but this one has quality that this one does not have. And the quality of this one is that there is some painter, some artist movement in it. Okay? You see the brush strokes, you see what I'm doing. You can see that's the difference between if you go to the museum and you look at an old painting and you see all the brush strokes and all the physical input that the artist is putting into their work. That's what's happening here right now in front of you. So we have 2 different ones. One of them is perfect. It's just a perfect circle, perfect disk. The other one is not perfect, but it's painterly. It has style. It's done by me with the brushes I choose. It's my movement in there. When I was a kid, my mother was very encouraging of my artwork, and she kept telling me I should sign the painting I was doing. And I always told my mom, like, the movement is my signature. The piece in itself is my signature. Like having to sign my name at the bottom of it is assuming, and I'm saying that it sounds very pretentious when I say that, but I'm just pushing further into that topic. It would be assuming that people cannot recognize my work through my personal visual identity, through my brushstrokes, through the way I do things. Having to sign it is almost like, or it's because I need to own it, or it's because I assume that the piece itself will not scream, it's done by me. And ideally, that's what a painting should be also doing, right? You should, when you look at it, you should know who did this, you should know the artist. That's another conversation when it comes to AI work, but again, I'm actively avoiding the AI topic right now. What I'm trying to tell you, that was not too bad of a circle right there. what I'm trying to tell you right now when I tell you those things is that with Photoshop you can automatize a lot of things. You can make everything very quick, very systematic. But please keep in mind that every time you do this, you are also leaving aside, maybe, potentially, some part of your own input into your artwork. But for now, this is a topic, we will come back to that when we talk about style and personal visual identity. But right now what I want you to look at is how fast Photoshop can allow you to do things, because gaining speed with Photoshop is also important, because the time you do not spend painting the entire circle is the time you can spend somewhere else on your painting, somewhere else on your work. But right now we can agree that this disc, this black disc, is completely flat, right? It could be a cartoon hole, something we can fall into, like something. And look at how fast I will turn it into something not flat at all. Here you go. So, and then, you know, I can go a bit, you know, I can put some light right here, and I can be picky. I can start to talk about, you know, reflective light. And then I can, well, okay, this is poorly done right now. So you will learn that I'm super picky with this kind of stuff. So sometime in class you will see me starting a fight with something I'm not doing as good as I would like to do, and then you are like, Bastian, can we just keep going with the lesson, please, instead of spending 3 hours trying to make that reflection just perfect, whatever. Oh, think about it. Like, let's think for a second, and you will see. You don't need to pay attention to. I mean, look at what I'm doing, but don't make it complicated in your head, because I'm going to simplify it for you anyway. What if that light that is coming from the side is actually pink? Wait, it's not going to work. I need to. Okay, I will do that later. So what I did, I will use the pink for something else, so you can see what I'm doing. So, okay, I'm going to do it this way. So think for a second that the light that is falling on this is actually a pink light, right? And so the only thing I'm doing right now is that I'm using a soft brush, and as you can tell, I'm painting it on a separated layer, and I'm clipping it. I will tell you how to clip things. The point I'm trying to make with this is that with Photoshop you can make those things happen really quick. And so that power that you have with, okay, I was a bit annoyed, perfect, ish. That power that you have with Photoshop is going to allow you to treat a lot of things this way. So right now I'm doing it on a ball now, on a sphere, but you could do exactly the same on a shoulder plate for an armor, or on the hood of a vehicle, or whatever you want. You can apply that logic of light and shadows, and you see how much, as soon as I drop light and shadow onto a shape, I can give it volume, right? And that's the point. That it took me way too long to get there, but that's the point I'm trying to make right now, is that if you drop light and shadow onto a shape, you give it volume. It is that simple. So before I forget, how do you clip stuff? We'll probably talk about that. I will probably reteach that at some point. But basically the way it works with Photoshop, in case you do not know that, is that if you are... So I created a layer on top of the black disk, and I'm painting blue on it like that. If I put my finger on Option and I click between the two layers, I'm clipping the top layer to the bottom layer. All right, so that is very useful for little things like if I'm designing a character at some point. Haha, I'm a character at some point. See, I get picky again on the pose. I will start sculpting the guy. That's bad. I will talk to you about silhouettes at some point as well, and how to convey some kind of attitude and whatever, but that's not the point right now. What I'm just going to show you is the fact that once you have a silhouette, so obviously we have some kind of warlock floating. That means that once you define your silhouette with this kind of technique, see I already created a layer that I clipped. So again, finger on option and I click in between both layers to clip or unclip. That means that once I decide to get into the character, to color the character, I can work this way, I can work details, I can work stuff on this character, on that silhouette, without having to be afraid of, you know, stepping outside of whatever defines the character, you know. And I can start building in there. That also means that if there is some light affecting that character, and I'm going to show you that with some pink light as well, if there is a pink light on the side, I can go on the side and give it some, you know, rim light like that. And if the main light is blue, like you can blast it. Just, you know what I mean? Like it's, learning how to clip stuff will give you a lot of easy control on stuff. But we are here to talk about values, so let's get rid of the colors and let's focus on light and shadows, black and white. So what I did on this is that I created, you know, first of all, a basic sphere, and then I took some white, I applied it on top of it. I'm going to then I'm going to clip it to make sure that it stays. And then I'm going to keep working on that, and I'm going to give it sorry, Photoshop is kind of annoying me right now. Can you please react? Thank you. You know, a brighter spot or whatever. But that also means that later I can go in and texture things. I can. But here it is. We have the idea of. I'm just demonstrating what I wanted to demonstrate. Light and shadow defined volume. So when you work, that's what I want you to have in mind, you know, when you work on a face, when you work on any kind of object that you are painting, whether it's a human silhouette or you can totally, if we are, let's say we are painting a vase right now, okay, with some flower in it. And so the first thing I will do, if it was me, and usually when I paint, it's me. So first thing I will do will be to get the shape right. I know we are dealing with some kind of symmetry, and I'm also purposely showing you some Photoshop shortcuts and the way my brain works when I'm using Photoshop. Okay, and so instead of losing yourself into the way you draw and paint traditionally, I want you to learn how Photoshop can do those things. And so what I will do is that I will make some kind of clean work at first. I will even use the Shift key sometime to have some clean edges and to erase in that. And then I will duplicate it, flip it around. I don't remember why it's going to go bad.
Welcome to VoiceOver.
I knew it. No, shut up. I knew it. I knew it was going to be bad. Every time I try some keyboard shortcuts in class, because I'm in class, I forget my shortcuts. It's always a mess. So I just flipped it to get that symmetrical aspect. And you see right now, again, I'm kind of almost refusing to paint because I'm just designing. So if I'm painting a scene with, I know that there will be like some flowers in the back, for example, flowers in a pot or some kind of plant. I will use the symmetrical capabilities of Photoshop and then, design some flowers, bunch of stuff in there, but let's just focus on the vase for now. So now, if I clip a layer over it, I can do exactly what I did show you that I was doing and start to think a bit about the volume in this. And where is the source of light? So if I know that the light comes from the top, I know that top side, for example. And what I will do is that I will literally sculpt, and that's the word I want you to kind of hear. I will sculpt my values. I will not treat my values as, I'm just painting or anything. I will sculpt. And I will put the light. I think it will be more interesting if I put it like source of light right there. So I'm adding some stuff, and I'm working without references right now, and I really suggest that you always work with references. Okay, I'm not doing it because my point right now is not to make a good, impressive work or anything like that. I don't care that much about that. I'm just showing you the principle of it in class right now. If I wanted to do some, I'm just sculpting, I'm just playing with it right now. I just want you to see, in fact, I even want you to see me trying. I don't want you to see me succeeding. I want you to see that, I'm just going to do it until it's right. In fact, I'm going to give up until it's right because, it's kind of right already. And then from this, and that's the way I will work, from this I will start painting a bit more. I will take some brighter color and give it, start to involve into it my own personal painting style, I guess. I don't like the word style too much, but whoops, I unclipped, clipped back. Where are we right now? Yeah, okay. And you see, I'm starting to paint in there, and my painting work in itself will provide some kind of texture and will slowly make things work. Again, I'm going to try to not trap myself in that because I'm very picky and I will have a tendency to not stop until it actually looks good, and I don't want to spend like more time on making a vase look perfect. That's not the point. But again, when I paint, I want you to see that I keep adding and I keep erasing as well. So I will paint, I will erase, and I will slowly have that dosage. I keep clipping layers, going on. And I will slowly do that. Slowly takes the time to do that. Again, the source of light, if we want to be a bit logical, the source of light is hitting right here, so it should also be hitting here and here. And so on. Okay, that also means that later I will probably decide to, give that vase a better bottom. I don't know if that's a correct thing to say. And that I will also have an indication of the fact that if the light is coming like down this way, like that, hitting that spot, it means that the shadow of the vase will probably like have to, in perspective, like kind of disappear in the distance back there. Okay. And then I will slowly do that. Slowly takes the time to do that. Again, the source of light, if we want to be a bit logical, the source of light is hitting right here, so it should also be hitting here and here. And so on. Okay, that also means that I will probably decide to, Do you understand what I'm talking about when I talk about that? Like the idea of that's a light spot. That's a wall. If you want to understand how the shadow should be, you just think about, you will like literally have some kind of diagonal right there. And so we know that on the floor, the shadow will be as long, the projected shadow will be just right there where the light is, and then we have the light on the ground. Does that make sense? So that means that, oh my god, I did this again. I painted everything on the same layer. I do that all the time, by the way, painting everything on the same layer. So when you feel very, very stupid doing that when you are working, don't worry, that's not bad news. It just means that you are one of us. Welcome, I don't know any digital painter who, even after several decades of experience, is not painting everything on the same layer by mistake all the time. So yeah, so the shadow will go a little bit back in the distance, but that's not that's for later as well. Then we'll talk about colors later. Again, I don't want to talk about this, but it's very easy once you have like some cool values. It's very easy to start dropping color on your pieces. It's not that's a topic for in a few weeks. Do you understand? Do you have questions? Do you have anything you want to say about what I'm doing right now?
Just to make sure clipping is holding alt and clicking in between the layers, right?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to show that I'm going to push that just a bit further and redo what I just did. Repeating what I say in class is important. That's how you remember stuff. So here it is. It's white, but as you can tell, what I just did right now is also falling on the side of the circle. Right there. So if I clip my finger on options, I clip by clicking in between the layers. That's what happens. I'm going to show you another thing with that. That means that when you are working in black and white and making a work of values, like what we are talking about right now, I could, for example, did I just did what I think I did? Okay. Here is a random brush that I could use for texturing stuff, for example. Okay, and you see how I'm going over as well, and then I clip it, and here I am, and then I could play with the layer mode, but that's something for another time as well. But I can go and erase some of it a bit, and but basically just by doing that, this is a basic start at texturing stuff. And that will also become useful. I know some of you in this class are also big into 3D, and that could help you a lot. The idea of texturing with Photoshop brushes. But that also means that if I want to bring some if I want to bring some photographic material into the image, and I'm going to go on Google right now and look up, I don't know, metal texture. Pick some random image. I'm on websites that are providing free available textures, by the way. I'm not stealing anyone's textures. But it's taking a while, so let's see if I import a broken file. That's definitely a broken file right now. So you can literally slide stuff from Google to your image, by the way. That's just what I did right there. So same thing, look, when I clip stuff, bam. That means I can also modify. Oh, by the way, quick tip, essential as well for the ones of you who are kind of discovering Photoshop with this class. As you can tell, you notice like my little handles and the blue rectangle around the object right there. You need to have that. If you don't have it when you work, that's an issue. You need to have this because that's what will allow you to change the perspective and size and all this kind of stuff to manipulate basically the object that you are dealing with, like I'm doing right now. So to have that, it's quite simple. You just need to select what they call the move tool, and then you need to click on show transform control on top. And just by clicking on show transform control that you should have on all the time, that will just give you that. And so, anyway, this is me right now using a metal texture to boost a bit the texture on that sphere. The obvious issue right now is that the texture on the sphere is not perfectly adjusted to perspective. So what I will do is that I will go to image. You don't need to remember that, right? This is extra tip, okay? Because we are not talking about values right now. Those are Photoshop technicalities. They matter, those things. So I'm showing that to you because we are at it, but that's not what, that's not what you need to remember absolutely. You can always ask me again for those stuff, it's no problem. If I go to edit, transform, warp, then I obtain this, and with this I can actually warp stuff. And that's useful because my texture that was not matching the roundness of that sphere is now matching it. See, and that's getting better. Questions? So again, just for the people in the stream right now, these are like, we are really in class talking about like some of the most basic stuff, but I'm the type of person who considers that we don't do anything complicated until the basics are strong. And one thing I explain, and I always tell you that, my students, right now, for example, I love learning stuff, and right now I went back to playing guitar a lot. And it's difficult because I have not played for a long time, and basically I'm relearning. But this time, because I'm trying to learn things correctly, I realize how much incorrect stuff I have been doing for years and kind of carried with me. And so I started to do the spider scale on the guitar. And I always did it wrong. I thought the spider scale was about going fast up and down. And it's not that. It's about making sure that you have to do it slowly, and you have to make sure that you don't touch the string with your other fingers to make sure that every string and every note you play on that string sounds clear. And so that's a clarity exercise more than a speed exercise. And I always got it wrong. And relearning guitar right now the right way makes me, I think, reevaluate some of the things I do with painting as well, and therefore that also kind of makes me a better teacher. And one of the things I'm really realizing is how much, and I knew that, it's not new. I did not wake up today thinking, oh my God, the basics and the fundamentals are important. Not at all. I always did teach that in class, but I'm just extra sensitive to that topic right now, and to the idea that I want you to take the time to do things right and slow at first, and doing things fast, and a lot more will come later. It comes in time. And because I knew that, because of my learning of painting, I decided to apply that to my learning of guitar lately. And I made that deal with myself, like, don't go too fast, just take the time, speed will come. And it was almost like a leap of faith, an act of trust, because I had to accept that I was not a guitar hero, and that speed was going to come in time. And so I'm focusing on accuracy, clarity, on the right forms, and speed is coming. Whether I don't try to practice the speed, but I'm just faster at doing it. And so the same thing will come to you with digital painting. You will see me in class sometime, I look like I don't know what I'm talking about. When I tell you, to clip you have to put your finger on, whatever, is it command, is it option, is it control, I don't remember, And you may think that it's because I don't know what I'm talking about, but in fact, it's because I know too much what I'm talking about. It's because I am at such a level that I don't have to think about it. My point is not to brag about how good I am at finding the right key on my keyboard. What I'm telling you with that is that you will get there too. It comes naturally. So I really, really want you to, I'm talking about guitar, and I will use that same metaphor when I say that your right hand, if you are right-handed, left hand, if you are left-handed, is kind of the rhythm. It's the brushwork. It's the energy of the painting. And your left hand is the note, the accuracy of the note, the touches you hit to make it sound right. And so do not paint without using your opposite hand on the keyboard. Because, and that's a point I'm going to make very strongly right now, if I select some yellow, and I put some yellow right here, and if I select some purple, and I put some purple pinkish right there, and if I put a bit of a brighter value on that sphere right now, right here, that means if I'm painting something on the side, I know right in front of me I do have my palette already. And so if I want to paint some dark, I have my finger going on option. I don't think about it, I'm looking at it just because I'm talking to you. And with my finger on option, I can pick exactly the value I want. And I don't have to spend a lot of time with that. And because my fingers are always right there, I don't have to think about it. So I change size of the brush, just like that, as fast as I color pick something that I just want to color pick. And I don't think about those stuff. That means that when I'm painting, my entire canvas becomes my own palette for values and colors. And at the same time, I have my brushwork with the intensity, the movement is defined by my pressure and the movement of my hand. And the size of the brush I use is just by 2 fingers applying pressure on 2 keys that my fingers are always on anyway when I work. Any values, any colors, see there's a bit of like orangey gray right there, pick it. And right now I'm showing you that with a hard brush, but here you go. Like I just, took a soft brush, put not a lot of pressure when I use it, pick the orange in the middle, use it right here. And I want like to cover the canvas, I can cover the canvas really quick. I want to sketch in white, change the size of the brush, and here I have my sketchy brush in white. And it just comes like that, It's the only time I think about it is when I tell you about that. And you will get there really quick. It comes quick. It's not Some of you are already there. I'm using Photoshop. Again, as I mentioned, that class is I'm using Photoshop, but that's exactly the same with Procreate or any software. And the more you learn software, the more you can gain that confidence that, well, I already know all those softwares because finally it's easy to learn them. This one should not be that complicated either. And you kind of gain that trust within yourself, trust of yourself, confidence that things will come in time. And that's very reassuring, and that allows you also to work a bit without stress. Because if there is one thing that artists are great at, it's judging themselves even during their process, which is like running a marathon with some metal plates to your legs. If even when you start painting a face, you start doubting yourself, you know. And so let's move that thing right there. And if I was to paint a face, considering what I've been talking about in Photoshop right now, here is what I will be thinking about. This is the face. This is it. And it will go through the entire ugly phase. It will, and I will accept that. And so instead of drawing, because we are talking about values right now, instead of making, you know I sketch, I love drawing, but instead of drawing, if I'm working with just painting, and again, without reference right now, and I don't like to do that, because I like my work to be realistic, not carry some kind of special iconic style or anything. But the first thing I will be doing is, first of all, giving kind of a head shape to it. And on top of it, I will define my system of light and shadow. So I will know that the eyes go there, that under the nose is right there, that the top lip is kind of a shadow, and then there is shadow under the bottom lip, okay? And then I will also know that there's probably some light on top of the nose. And again, we are talking about like completely normal, normal light setting. There will be some light on the forehead, probably over the eyes, a bit. Oh my god, this person looks concerned already. Not as concerned as I am, but it's okay, Probably a bit of light on the top lip, probably a bit of light on the chin. And obviously, cheekbones as well. But whatever, you see, I did not, so basically by doing this, the first thing I did was to acknowledge several things. First of all, we have a standard light coming from the top, so it's hitting the light on the nose, chin, the lip, over the eyes, the cheekbones, okay? That means that the shadow comes from underneath, and it's hitting like the bottom lip, under the nose, the eye cavity, bottom of the chin, under the lip right there, okay? Am I making sense with that? Like, stop me if it's not working. That is clearly a great blog. And so I'm really using a basic system right there. But you could decide that, when things, if you want to complexify things, that light comes really from that side, and then you have to highlight some part of the face and put in shadow the other side of the face, and we get into something a lot more complex that I'm not diving in right now. We'll talk about portrait anyway, and I will probably make a real demonstration of painting a face and everything a bit later in the semester, maybe next class or the next one. One of the things I'm acknowledging right now also, and that does not bother me at all, is the ugly phase of what I'm doing. I know that right now it's not gonna look great at all, and it's completely okay. I'm just starting a process, and it takes a while. So I have gained that confidence, and that helped me in my process, and I think it's early for me to talk about that, but I think I will talk about it again and again anyway. There was a time when I would stop early because every time I was starting something, I had the feeling that I was really not getting what I wanted. And sometimes it's really a good idea to stop, reset, do something else. But sometimes it's important to push, because no matter what, it does not look great at first. We talked about that, I'm saying it again. No matter what, at first, it does not look great. And so you just need to, once you acknowledge this, it means you know you just have to push through, and it's completely fine, and it's healthy in a way. It's a healthy relationship with your painting and your work, because once again you can relax. You don't have to stress about is it looking good or not. Well, it's not supposed to, so who cares, you know? Ask yourself that when you're about to give me the work, you know, for the critic session. Just ask yourself, like, is it good to show that during a critic session? But that's another topic. Accept the simplicity of that process, and that's really what I want you to do with the first project. It's that simple. You have been muted. Someone in the meeting muted me. Who did that? That's really funny, actually. The students muting the professor, like, yeah, I'm done. I'm just done, you know. I guess what I'm saying is a bit too positive or something. I know that with that light system, will these classes be rewatchable somewhere? Yes. Those classes are staying on Twitch. One of the things that I want to say is that those are just really stuff that I may actually record some real strong classes and make some good recording of it, and post them somewhere available for my students and maybe for the rest of the world, who knows. But those classes right now is just me just taking it easy, and you know, I'm not making those streams with too much expectation on myself. Exactly what I was explaining about painting right now. So if I was aiming for making some real quality content video, I would do things a bit differently. Right now, because we are in class, I want my students to see my hesitations, my failings at painting a nose well. I want my students to see how much even professionals who have done that for years actually end up struggling every time they start something. You see what I'm doing though? I'm already, because I cannot help myself, I'm already starting to imply with my brushwork the shape of the lips. And when I do that, I'm simply painting. I'm showing you that because you need those advices for the first project. See, I'm aware of the shape of lips. And so my brushwork, that looks creepy right now, my brushwork is reflecting this. I'm aware of the shape of eyes. My brushwork is reflecting that. So now, right now, I'm going to, oh my god, it's whatever I do always end up looking sinister as fuck, even if it's just, my god.
It's just your style, don't worry about it.
I know, yeah, it's just, you know, I'm just expressing myself no matter what, huh? So here is something I do too a lot when I paint with values, and that's what we are talking about right now. I often overpaint and erase. Use the eraser as a tool. Okay, that gives you that kind of sculpting relationship with your painting work. Overdo it a bit and remove. Overdo and remove. Again, nothing to see here, you know, it's like I'm doing it really quick, but that's the way I will slowly sculpt when I work.
Do you make a new layer every time that you add a different thing?
So yes.
Okay.
Yes, but here it is, merge. Okay, so I do that. If I paint like that, if I'm just sketching, that's what I do. I will create a new layer every time, and if I think it works, I merge. And right now, it works. I know it's stable enough. And again, don't stress about everything because it takes nothing for you to just go back and change whatever you want to change whenever you want to change it. It's not. Don't be afraid of that. But yes, I create new layer, and if I think it works, like that works, merge down. That's the way I work when I paint and when I sketch. When I work for a professional project where sometimes I am aware that the client will ask for changes, decide to move this or that, change the color of this or that, usually I keep my layers more, to make sure that I can move things. And we have a neck, but that neck should also, and here we go. And then we have a haircut with a brush that has nothing to do with this, and that's also one of my points. Try to get your brushes work in harmony, So I did this because I'm like, as soon as you do that, it makes no sense at all. Like suddenly it's as if you are like making a nice work with some certain flow in it, and then what I just did kind of killed the flow. So even if I want to be funky with that, wait, I'm painting on the neck layer. If I want to be funky with this, I can still have that same logic, but I'm going to do it with something that kind of matches the flow. Okay, with a brush that goes with it. We will talk about how to paint hair, for sure. That's one of the questions that comes back all the time, because it's always a mess. It should be a mess. Hair should be a mess. But you see, I have brushes for that I like, that I use to paint hair. And kind of, you need to try to treat hair like some volume in itself. We'll talk about that as well. And I will make some of my brushes available for you so you can add that. And as always, I do, and I undo, and I erase. And I'll go back and I'll do more. Again, right now I'm just doing that just like that, just to show you. I'm more talking about my relationship to values, light and dark, and creating volume and taking the time to do that, changing the size of the brush, getting into the flow. But if I was to paint a face for an illustration, I would have a photo shoot with someone that then I can use as a reference, and I will make that photo shoot with the right, with the light orientation, like the everything will be organized basically to reflect the scene I'm painting, to make sure that everything goes together. And that's very important for me to say that, because there is no way I could pretend that in my artwork all those faces and all those people are painted just from imagination. The same way all those master painters from the past were always working with reference. And you should too. And it's very important. Working without references does not make you a better artist. In fact, the reality is that it makes you not as good in the long run, because even when you paint from imagination, for example, what I just started right now in front of you, I started it in a way that is kind of stable, because I have a good idea of how the face structure works. And I have a good idea of this because I looked at references so much when painting and drawing in the past. So do not skip that part. Okay? Every time someone tells you, oh, but you use the reference, it's like, well, yeah, of course I use the reference. Of course I did, because I'm a serious artist, because I want to learn the shapes and the forms of the subject I'm about to paint. So there is a lot to think about when it comes to this. Like, we are not here to prove to one another that we are good or bad at painting, for example. It's not a competition. It's not, there is a big difference between painting and athleticism. We are here to try to convey something on a surface that we have to or want to, or we are just trying to paint that shit. Basically, we are just trying to paint that fucking. And so that in itself is a call for stop judging yourself. Stop. I have seen so many students judging themselves and judging what they were doing, saying, "Oh, I'm cheating," and I'm like, "Who is telling you that?" "Well, nobody, but I'm using a brush that already has a tree in there." And I'm like, "But you're not cheating. You're just using your tools to create something that you want to create. It's not cheating at all. Like, you actually can do that. You should do that. So you should use brushes. You should use the shortcuts of Photoshop. You should not be afraid of using all that when you paint. And you should absolutely look at references, because every time you look at a reference to paint, you are educating yourself. It's not as if you are like some kind of empty vessel that looks at something and forget about it. You have memory. You remember what you do. And I will go back to me learning guitar right now. The more I repeat something, the more I have like guitar fretboard for dummies right there on my desk, because I'm aware of my own ignorance of things, and I'm aware of how much I must learn and educate myself on. And I want you to have that as an attitude in my classes. I want you to look at references, because if someday you actually really end up being an artist who draws without looking at references, if your style is not realistic and you just like to draw characters from your head, this is great, but you will be better at it if you took the time before to study reality. And this is why I push so much for students to take life drawing classes. This is why I push so much for observation. And in a way, when you understand this, that also means that you are always working on yourself as an artist, because you are always observing reality. You're always looking at things, and you're always slowly understanding how things are done, and you should be able to recreate that. Yes?
Do you use your own artwork as reference?
My own artwork as reference? No.
Yeah.
No. I never go back. I never work on a new piece looking at my own artwork as a reference for it. Never. Because that would be kind of a closed circle, It's like, I'm not going to make that awful metaphor, but, it would be like drinking your own blood, basically. I tried to make a not awful metaphor, and I made one that may be worse, but whatever. There are questions in the chat. What do you think of photo bashing? No, photo bashing is very important. I use a lot of photo bashing. I talk about that often. I talk about that one time I was trying to paint that hand, and I have painted and I have drawn some hands for years and years, and I'm actually quite confident that I can easily paint and draw good hands. But at one time I had a deadline the day after, and that hand was looking terrible, and after several tries I was like, I have other things to do, I need to sleep, like I can't. And I talked about that in class the last time, and I straight up took a photo of my hand, copy-pasted it into the artwork, painted over it, make it match with everything, and done, But I have no problem with this. I think the reality is we don't owe anything to anyone as artists. We don't steal the stuff of other artists, of course, but if I want to take a photo of my hand and put it in my painting, there is no problem with that. That's my creative process. That's, those are more like, those are good conversations to have. But in this class about values, right now, anyway, I don't want you, my students, to use any kind of photo bashing right now. I want you to do what I'm doing right now in front of you. And that makes me think that I have to clarify something important. There is a big difference between using references, which when I say using references, I mean you have a photo reference on the side. Don't use the artwork of someone as a reference, because then you are copying a style. and you don't want to copy a style, not even just to respect the other artist, but even for yourself. You want to build your own, you know. You want to look at reality and see how you translate it. So when you look at references, look at photographs, look at people that are alive in front of you, look by the window, you know, look at the real deal, and then see how you make it 2D, you know, the way you do it. Again, I can't wait to talk about style. That's something I love to discuss. We'll talk about that a lot. But the point is, when you use references, I mean on the side. It's very different than photo bashing, where you will actually take some photographic element and apply it in your artwork. And I will also give you classes about photo bashing, of course, and we'll talk about how you can use photograph for texture, for so many things into your artwork. It's not about cheating or not cheating, it's about does it work with your work or not, and what type of work are you doing. Photo bashing works great with my artwork because I strive for realism, and in fact there was a time at the beginning of my career where I was not as good as a painter as I am today. I'm not saying I'm a great painter, but I'm way better than I was. And I'm confident with my painting. I can paint easily something very realistic. And I got there because at the beginning I did not know how to do that, and I started to use a lot of photograph within my artwork. But because I wanted the painting style and the photographic style to blend, I had to learn how to level up my painting to match with the photographic aspect of it. And so basically the techniques I was using that were used to make up for a lack of skills at the beginning became the techniques that trained me to paint. That's a bit abstract, but I think that's interesting. So yeah, I hope I'm making sense to you. I hope that I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There is a lot of okay, I'm lost in all my. All right, there's a lot of things. Did I stop sharing my screen? No, I did not stop sharing my screen with you guys. All right. So there is a lot of things to discuss, and I was supposed to teach about values today, and I ended up talking about a lot of other stuff that matter as well, and I will do that all the time in my classes. Okay, so be ready for this. It's always a bunch of things coming your way. The reason why I stream them is because this way they are recorded, you can go back to it. You can be, oh, he made that point at this moment and it was interesting, or he said that and it was really stupid and we need to make a video out of it, or whatever, you know. Help yourselves. There are things I want to discuss about value a bit more later, but we will talk about that into different other topics. So when I will teach you how to create your own Photoshop brushes and to identify what brushes you like to work with, we will also talk about values a bit, because simply of the pressure setting and the opacity and all that. And we'll talk about values a lot more when we start talking about composition, because the way I teach composition is using contrast as a guideline into everything you do in composition. And so when we talk about contrast between a lot of different things, but one of those contrasts is the contrast of values, contrast of strong light, strong shadows, and you know, that dosage of contrast that you use even when you post a photo online and you know, go through some filters or some adjustments. Contrast is a way to highlight or delight. That's a funny wording, but I think I'm a smartass, I guess. It's a way to highlight or delight, and therefore you can attract attention or not. You can, well, again, I'm not going to say it, but I'm not going to repeat myself again. But anyway, we'll talk about values in a very applied way in the coming classes. What I wanted you to see and learn today was really that I want you to learn how to paint with this understanding that light and shadows are defining the volume of your pieces. I want you to take it step by step. I want you to start thinking with one single light source instead of something very complex. So for your first project in black and white, I'd rather have you paint someone standing in the sunlight. I don't know, like a portrait of, like a picture of a kid visiting Stonehenge. And so you have that kid standing with like, you know, those stones. Some simple shadows because it's just about the sun in the sky and that's it. So the shadows of the stones on the ground, the shadows on the face of the kid, all that is like one single light source. I'd rather you focus on something like this at first than a scene where someone is in the club with like neon lights hitting from every direction, plus they are smoking a cigarette and the cigarette is highlighting their faces, but the smoke is like taming down the values because it gets foggy, you know, like let's not get there just yet. So when you work on those first 3 images that I'm asking from you, make it simple, you know, make it simple and easy. You could even sit with yourself the way we are doing that right now on, you know, on Team, and make it a portrait, you know, like look at yourself, look at the way, if I look at my face right now, I already have something a bit complex because I have a ring light in front of me, but I have red lights hitting the side of my head and it shines because, you know, and I can't believe this shit is recorded. You should prevent me from going live. But you see what I'm talking about, like, you can really sit down and make just a few studies, make it quick. Like, you should do that. Actually, I will give you that as an exercise for like this week, where you sit in front of a camera on your computer and you spend 1 hour just studying light and shadows. I don't care if your self-portrait looks like you. I don't care if things look broken or that your face is melting. I don't care. I just want to see that you are dealing with a bit of light and shadows, trying to build volume and trying to get comfortable with that. Okay, but I will post on Discord for this assignment. Before I let you go, do you have any questions? Yes.
Blackboard. Your
Not using
Blackboard link is private. We're not using it.
No,
Okay.
everything's on Discord right now. I will make Blackboard available for everyone when it becomes useful. But it tends to, I have too many students who are way too confused with Blackboard. So I'm just using Discord, everyone's same language, and that's it. Yeah. Anything else? I will see you all next week. All right, and we are out of class. Yes, randomly hopped here. Are these classes public? Yeah, I'm doing this for fun. Not for fun. That's not. I decided to share my classes with the classes I teach with my students for several reasons. First of all, it's interesting for some of you, like from all over the world, really, to come and tune into my really low-level classes right now, because that's what it is. Tune into that if that's interesting for you all. It's interesting for me because that keeps me on foot, and that makes me making sure that I have like more audience, more questions, more, you know, and so basically if someone in the chat is asking questions that students are not asking and that are not thinking about, it just multiplies the amount of potential interaction, and I like that. And yes, it's just free, like, you know, it's that simple. I'm being paid. My students pay for services that they have and that people in the chat on Twitch don't get. You know, my students, I look at their work. They can message me anytime. They get feedback. They get grades. Like, there is a lot of things happening in the background. But as far as my lectures once a week on random topics, I'm making that part of my teaching available. Yeah. So I hope it's interesting for you. Again, like right now we are really at the beginning of the semester, and I think a lot of very interesting classes are coming, especially about composition, personal style, your overall attitude as an artist, because that's really what I love talking about, more than the technical aspects of things. That's it. So I'm just looking at the chat right now, but yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about AI, but especially because I'm literally going to be part of uh, the lawsuit against AI. So just to make it clear, I'm excessively opposed to the way it's done by the people who are doing it right now. I'm not opposed to the technology at all. I think there is no point of being opposed to the AI technology. I think it's coming. I think it can be very interesting. But right now, all these Midjourney and Stable Diffusion and all those generators are using databases, databanks that are being filled up with the work of other artists, me included. We have paperwork saying that they intentionally filled up their databases with that. So we have legal issues. So basically, people right now, those places are creating artificial intelligences that are doing some work that is outstanding because the technology is crazy good. That is basically going to put a lot of artists out of work, and it's putting us out of work, but it has been fed on our own artwork. So basically, without knowing it, we are feeding the monster who is trying to kill us. And I'm not having this. That's my take on AI. And I'm not, a crybaby being like, oh, my artwork is being stolen. That's not what it is. It's just, that's just not okay. That's just unethical. So I was excited by the technology at first. I tried Midjourney. I did some stuff with it. I was very excited by the technology until I realized what was going on with that. And then I literally not changed my mind, but took a stand on what I think about it. All right, I have another class to teach, but this one will not be live. I will see you all very soon because I may come and paint live in the evening this week or something like that. Cheers.